The voice of sharing, DurianAsean.
Monday Morning Matters.
Perspectives
From Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
Hi, this is Grace.
Why are you so hesitant? There's no Quake here.
Yeah, you forgot your name.
No, I didn't forget. It's just I wanted to give it a little bit of pose.
Today we are starting our Monday Morning Matters with something that is earth-shattering. What is it, Gowri?
I think we're talking about the earthquake that happened in Sabah recently that has been causing shocks not only in Malaysia, but we're making headlines pretty much all over the world.
For a lot of reasons,
Yeah.
but not positively.
So do you guys like to be naked?
I respect nudity.
I appreciate nudity in when it's done tastefully in art.
So how do you define tastefully or not? But to me personally, I'm a bit divided when it comes to nudity, especially in public places. Just to go back to our main topic today, which is Sabah's earthquake. Is it a nudist curse? Because apparently what had happened in Malaysia, in Kota Kinabalu, in Mount Kinabalu, it seems like a group of white tourists has been blamed for being naked and causing the earthquake recently.
And they are actually made up of quite a diverse crowd from Netherlands, from Britain, and a few other countries.
Canada
As well. And while they were actually at the top of Mount Kinabalu, and I think they got pretty excited, they were enjoying themselves, and then some of them decided to just strip down naked and wanted to take some pictures that way. And I think the local guide did try to stop them, but they were not really willing to listen, and they thought that they just wanted to do it at that moment of time. It seemed right for them, so they went ahead and did it, and then it seems that it led to some unwanted incidents after that.
Well, they were having their time of their lives for sure at Mount Kinabalu, and yes, they did post pictures, and that went quite viral. And now it's censored all over. And that led to, especially to religious groups in Malaysia, to come up with another sort of reasons and issues regarding this earthquake in Sabah.
Just to track back and just to focus on earthquake, it's dumbfounding that the biggest news coming from the earthquake is not actually about the earthquake and the death toll that came about because of the earthquake. Is because of some nudists on Mount Kinabalu. Just to give you the extent of the earthquake, it was quite a huge one. In fact, it was so huge that 18 people perished at Mount Kinabalu. And the whole road leading towards Mount Kinabalu were being somehow covered in rubbles. And in fact, one of they call it the donkey ears. One of the ear has been somehow chipped away.
Yep.
So that was quite a horrible scene if you look at such extent of earthquake that never been happening before in Sabah before this. But it never really got into such a huge news other than probably around our neighboring countries, especially Singapore. A lot of their pupils were perished there.
And talking about the donkey's ear on the mountain, because that's one of the attractions when it comes to Southeast East Asia in Sabah, but then it was already reported because of the strong magnitude from earthquake, it was chipped off. But if you go back to the history of the earthquake, the records in Malaysia, there were a few incidents in Sabah, but it was just never highlighted and reported before. And then the magnitude of the earthquake was just average around 5 or even lesser than that. So it wasn't very up to the serious level until just recently it was hit almost 6 magnitude, which was very, very serious. Then also it came along with a lot of unexpected incidents such as nudity and other coincident events that happened along the way.
And what's even more shocking is there are almost 50 aftershocks that happened after the
50?
50.
Wow.
That happened after the initial earthquake that happened last Friday morning. And this led to, of course, a lot of people injured, and like you mentioned, 18 people died from the whole tragedy. And we've also had a lot of search and rescue missions which are still ongoing, and of course a lot of Singaporean children were also affected by this whole earthquake that happened in Sabah. And it's interesting that the search and rescue mission from Malaysia was actually not that proactive, I would say.
In fact, it took them 9 hours just to reach to the base of the Mount Kinabalu. The unsung heroes at that time were the native guides. They actually knew the Mount Kinabalu quite well, so well that if it's not because of them, there will probably be more death, because at that time there were about more than 100 people were on top of the mountain at it, and it was quite an eventful day for them.
Yeah, and it was mostly the mountain guides who helped those people down. I even saw a couple of interviews where it was quite impressive that they just said, it's my job as the mountain guide to get these people to safety, and they said that my own safety is not really important. I have to make sure that these other people get down safely, and then that's when I can continue with what I'm doing. And they also, like you said, they actually know the ins and outs of the mountain, every slope, every turn, which area is safe, which is not, which is okay for them to be, and they just knew every single whole of the mountain, and because of that it made it easier for them to actually go ahead and rescue the people, and they also had to do it without much help from the official search and rescue team.
The going back to our topic of nudity and all this incident happened, it's very interesting because Mount Kinabalu is UNESCO World Heritage Site, and also it's very popular place for climbing destination. But after this happened, though these tourists, they start posting even more and insulting the government in Malaysia, and also why are all these politicians are so stupid, because you only caught us, but after that there are so many others, not even Malaysia, but they do it do it as in like they can just go nude or whatsoever to express that achievement on the top of the mountain. And why can't they do it just freely? It's part of the culture, but then that part of the culture is not respected in certain countries, and Malaysia is one of the examples.
We will talk more about that tourist attitude towards Southeast Asian, but let's just focus on the death toll and Sabah itself and the native guides. I think one interesting thing that I found out about Sabah is, we talk a lot about the Malay, Chinese, Indian, about Islam, about Christianity, but we never really look at the cultural or traditional customs or the history of Sabah and Sarawak. The Sabah people are actually quite ethnically diverse. I found out this website, it's called greatermalaysia.com. There's this one author, she actually posted on why it's such a big deal for Sabahan when it comes to Gunung Kinabalu. Why people in general, we need to respect their local custom. It's the story of Aki Nabalu, the revered place of the dead. I know this one might sound like some kind of scene from a Lord of the Rings.
What is it?
It's like the Valley of the Dead, if you remember in one of the scenes for Lord of the Rings. So one of the Facebook user, her name is Farhana Abdul Fattah, she posted that Mount Kinabalu, or to her is Aki Nabalu, means that the people of the Dusun tribe, and how the action of a few have troubled many. She said that she knows that a lot of Westerners who claim to live in a much more civilized society and staunchly vouch for a more modern and progressive thought and action. And they might think ancestral belief and practices should be shunned away and laughed off. But to her, she begged to differ because in Sabah, there are three primary angles: cultural and spiritual, scientific and logical, as well as religion. And for her, she wants to focus more on the elder custom here. She said she's a dusun, sometimes jokingly referring herself to orchard, is the Malay word for orchard actually. And she speaks the native language, and in general, she said that Akinabalu means the revered place of the dead. And she preferred the description of what her grandmother taught her when she was young, that the place where your grandpa has his holiday as he looks down over us to see if we are okay. Right. So if I put it in probably the Pyramid of Egypt term, in the Pyramid of Egypt, for the king to rest in peace is to build a pyramid that is so high up that he can ascend to the top of the heavens. So Gunung Kinabalu or Akinabalu is the place where all the dead, those who die, and their spirit will go to the mountain, and that's where they will look down to their loved ones and see and maybe bless them. So it's kind of a cultural beliefs of the people of the Dusun tribe, and to me that's something interesting, something that even myself being a Malaysian, I wouldn't have known about it.
I think when it comes to customs and culture, it differs for, of course, different countries, even in Malaysia itself, because of the different ethnicities. Like you were saying, even if we were to go to Kinabalu, we will probably not be aware of what the certain things mean to them, or even the mountain itself, as much as we do know that it holds a sacred meaning, that we may not know what exactly it holds in terms of spirit and how it looks after the people there, ancestors, customs and tradition. And I think maybe these people were just ignorant that they went there and they thought, okay, they had their own perception. Maybe they were looking at it from a different angle, but they failed to realize that they are in a different country halfway across the world, and things might work a little differently here.
And that's true. We'll take one short break. When we return, we will discuss about the nudist tourists, and Grace will share more on her point of view, whether it's right or wrong.
Monday Morning Matters.
Perspectives
from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
And you're with Grace.
Of course, you are with us on our Monday Morning Matters. We will discuss issues in Southeast Asia, and this time with a focus on the Sabah Quake, whether it is a nudist curse. Earlier on, we discussed about the extent of the earthquake in Sabah and how the Sabahan believe in a cultural, local culture's custom that is uniquely Sabahan. For Mount Kinabalu, they refer to Akinabalu, where that's where all the spirit of the dead lay themselves there. One thing that I want to highlight is about I guess it is the clash of different cultural belief. I wouldn't say logical thinking, but more like cultural perception about how things should be, how we should conduct ourselves. From the perspective, I mean, speaking from the perspective of the local Dusun, they actually felt very hurtful on this. They feel that this kind of action is actually raping Aki's dignity to that extent. In fact, the earthquake itself somehow magnified the whole situation probably 1,000 more times. Because the story of if you notice, the story of the nudists on top of the mountain was reported earlier before the Sabah Quake, and people were already angry about it.
Right. and then the earthquake happened. And I think there's actually a term for this in Latin, which is post hoc ergo propter hoc, which means after this happened, so this must happen because of this. So like you were saying, there was already the news about the Nudists, and then the earthquake happened, so people just form a link between those two stories. But actually it could be something that's based upon a mistaken notion that just because one thing happens after the other, the first event must have caused the second event. And most of this, according to this term here as well, that the reasoning for this is usually superstitions and old cultural beliefs. And it may not necessarily have a link, of course, but at the same time, that doesn't give people the right to disrespect another culture. It makes sense for them to be there at that point of time, and they could have done whatever that they wanted to do, but sometimes when you're in a different country, a different region, you just have to be more sensitive to the different beliefs or different traditions that they might have or have been practicing for generations. And it just gets disrupted when somebody does something out of the norm.
And I think I have a different points here, because as a tourist, when they go to especially a different culture part from Western to Eastern, or the other way around, it is also up to the tourist site to educate the tourist. Before they climb the mountain, they should have a sort of instruction, and then just give a briefing, what this mountain is about, and then how people around here have been practicing, and also from generation to generation, how they have passed on their culture. So then automatically, even though Western they have their own strong culture, they will respect the Eastern culture as well. And that didn't happen in Sabah. There are hardly people from outside of Sabah know about the culture, what's going on, except the mountain, that particular mountain is very famous for tourist attraction. But other than that, what do we know? Even Malaysians, we hardly know about all these facts, the Dunsun or the culture they've been practicing. So that's also educational part that the government really needs to focus. If that's spiritual mountain, they really need to pay the proper respect and then to educate the public properly. So that will go for even the travel agency to put on the one of the introduction to this is that, so we all the tourists need to pay their respect.
Yeah, actually, you're right on that. In fact, I was reading yesterday on one of the UK tabloid, and what is stated that the UK High Commission in Malaysia, they are going to revise the traveling advice about Malaysia, because most of the time they focus on religion and Peninsular Malaysia. When it comes to Sabah, there's very description on how tourists, especially tourists from the UK, can respect and understand the local culture better. And I think with this, it kind of exposed not just to the UK people, but also to us Malaysian, that there's such a rich local and historical custom and tradition that we need to know and understand, and hopefully respect as well as part of their belief system.
And I think that is a good move that they are revising the travel advice. But at the same time, I do also think that they don't have to be spoon-fed. It doesn't always have to be the guide or the travel agency's responsibility. If we're going to visit a place, usually we do some research about it anyway. And if I think that if they had actually done some reading or whatnot, they would have known about what it means to the local people. And also before they actually stripped naked, the tour guide they were with did actually tell them that you cannot do this, but they went ahead and did it anyway, saying it's okay, this is no big deal, it's fine.
Actually, that goes to one of my point that I want to somehow highlight here is I guess white privilege, especially among Western tourists. In a way, I personally feel that when you come from I would say developed country, when you go to a third world country or a developing country like Southeast Asia, you tend to somehow become shitty tourists. Instead of respecting local culture and custom, you act like as if you have much more privilege and you want to take advantage, abuse your privilege for your own personal benefit. And I think for these young kids, because they're only in their early 20s, they think that it's a fun thing to do, to strip naked. And in fact, one of the reports saying that they were very rude to the local native guides. Instead of listening to the guides, they actually just disregard him and then just continue to strip naked. And I think this shows that there's lack of ethics among tourists in general, especially tourists from Western countries. In fact, if I were to move to other places in Southeast Asia, there were complaints, for example, by the Balinese that they are not happy with Australian tourists coming to Bali because they feel that the Australians do not respect their local culture and custom as well.
Well, there's a point that you made there, but it also goes the other way around as well. But of course, this case, all those young kids from UK, what Gowri mentioned before, they did not study for sure. They just came here for fun activity to climb the mountain and then have fun on the top of the mountain, which is, just strip off, which is okay. But then, like Gowri mentioned, they were warned by this guard before, but they just they totally ignored his advice. And that's when it went even more viral on the social media after they posted. And they even used very vulgar words on social media, insulting the government of Malaysia. And that's when the Malaysians felt that they are not respecting their opinion. They are not even give sort of beep about all this Malaysian culture side. So I guess it comes from the both sides.
I think it also goes back to, just to digress a bit, when it comes to like an atheist or a religious person. It's okay if
you're showing it to me.
I'm just randomly pointing, and I'm not pointing it at you. So if it's okay if you want to be an atheist, if you don't believe in certain things, that's totally up to you. But that doesn't mean that you are completely insensitive to the people around you who may be religious and believe in a higher being out there and believe in practicing their religion. Like, you don't simply walk into a temple like maybe with your shoes on and do whatever, like drink alcohol or whatever, just because you don't think that this means anything. For some people, it does mean something. It means a lot to them, and you should respect it if you're going to step into their territory.
But do you think Asian tourists would do the same thing as well?
Well, I believe Asian tourists...
There's a lot of complaint on Chinese tourists, especially where China has become such a huge economic power.
Yeah, and also... Asians, we also do when you go to Western countries for a tour or even fun activities.
You know what I would assume Asians would do instead of strip naked? They would put that "I'm here" and then take a photo.
Yeah, I've actually read a lot of articles, but the way Asian tourists misbehave is not when it comes to ritual or religion, because that one, they're very sensitive. There are times they remove their shoes when they don't even have to because they're so used to that practice. But I read a lot about how they are not as hygienic, or they don't follow certain practices that probably the Western countries do, especially when it comes to social ethics, like getting into a train or queuing up to buy food. I think that's where we really lack when it comes to the social
So
ethics.
you're speaking on behalf of Asians?
I guess so. I see it every day as well when I'm at the train station, how people are just pushing you and they just don't care if you fall as long as they get into the train and they're fine. And then all this problem with littering, I think that's another issue that a lot of the Western countries have already gotten over. But here, I'm not just talking about Malaysia, but Asia in general, I think even especially tourists from India have one of the highest complaint rates. And I'm speaking based on the statistics. And it seems they are labeled as dirty people who don't know how to take care of the environment whenever they visit a certain place.
And it's also the culture. because of the culture that we hold, we just carry on our culture to outside of our own nations, and that goes same for how these UK kids came to Malaysia. They carry their culture. I mean, they're not educated for sure when it comes to visiting other sites, but then it's their culture. Being naked to them, it's just a fun activity.
And it's no big deal.
It's no big deal for them for sure. Until now, they don't believe and they don't pay respect to this. And they just make it worse on the social media, apparently. So they don't understand the importance of also understanding whole this culture side and the ritual and the spiritual of the whole this religious site in Malaysia.
There's this saying, I think it's a popular saying that when you're in Rome, do what the Rome say. But I want to argue, like, how much of the local custom that we should respect and how much of it we should actually questioning it, because at the same time, as much as I would like to respect certain belief systems, certain idea of how the person conduct their community or their environment, there are certain things that it just doesn't make sense, personally, to myself or to probably the kids who were stripping naked there. So what is the fine line between accepting the local culture and custom and trying to challenge the normative idea of the society there?
I think when it comes to drawing a fine line, it is a very tricky thing because we never know what is... how do you define that this is reasonable and this is not so reasonable? And I think it's best to come from the people themselves, not for someone from the outside, because they might feel like, hey, it's not in your place. You have not been practicing this, so how can you come in and tell us that this is not right or this doesn't work? I think like if I may refer to the practice in India where they used to push the wife into the fire when the husband died and they're burning his body, and the British tried to tell them before, like, this is dumb, why are you killing this woman because her husband died? But that only made them more angry. So it took for them themselves to realize that, yeah, actually, why are we doing this? This woman is innocent and she didn't really make any mistake. She deserves to move on with her life. So I think it goes back to that community themselves for them to realize what is okay, what's reasonable to continue for generations, and what exactly is ridiculous and is being inconvenient or hurtful to someone.
So that means the community itself have to realize it by themselves, not having that white man's burden sort of mentality that outsiders need to tell, hey, our culture is more superior than yours, so listen to us. That's not the right way to do it. We'll take another short break. When we return, we will discuss more about the Sabah Quake and scientifically how it is formed, as well as trying to understand the nudist point of view, whether they are actually not that wrong or they are right.
Monday Morning Matters.
Perspectives
From Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
Hi, this is Grace.
And you're back with us again on our Monday Morning Matters on Sabah's Quake, whether it is a nudist curse. So let's talk about how earthquake is formed. I want to go to the scientific part of it. Apparently, we have an ancient tectonic plate underneath Malaysia. I didn't know about it. Gowri and Grace.
Until this one was highlighted, nobody knew, I think.
And I think because of this, like Grace mentioned, we actually did have a few minor quakes before, but it wasn't really reported because it was less than 5.0 magnitude. So the meteorological department thought it's not a big deal. It's just a minor thing. People will get over it. We don't really have to report and scare people about this. But it did lead to something that is so massive, and we have people who are injured and people died. Even some of the mountain guides who were trying to rescue people died. So I think this also happened because of some of the previous earthquakes that further weakened the plate that lies beyond Sabah.
And in fact, Sabah is very prone to all those earthquakes. And and also not being in the Pacific Ring of Fire. And like you mentioned, so many occurrences starting from 2014, even before, going all the way back to 1989. And there were actually all those earthquakes were recorded in the meteorological department. It's just that it was not educated, and also there was no certain way of creating the awareness when it comes to natural disaster, even after like an after effect. For example, how people should react when it comes to natural disaster. How about the state government? What they need to do when it comes to natural disaster?
I think it's the role of ministers, especially in Sabah, since it is going to be happening quite more compared to last time. I believe climate change have caused this, but some people might argue that climate change is a fuss, but that's up to them. To me personally, politicians hold a greater responsibility to educate society, and I think if I were to agree with the point of view of the Nudists and people who support the Nudists at the Sabah Quake, is our politicians do not make sense at all. For example, Sabah's tourist minister, Masidi Manjun, he spent days in an online debate with another climber believed to be one of the 10 who disrobed, which is probably the person's name is called Emil Kaminsky, that mocked the assertion that the quake was connected to his group behavior. In fact, Masidi has gotten the government's position that Masidi he said that because of this bunch of tourists, we have all this problem of earthquake, and he has disturbed and angered the mountain spirit and all that. I think this is very misleading for a politicians to say like that. I think for a politician, even for example Joseph Pairin Kitinggang, he's deputy chief minister of the Malaysia state of Sabah. He also agreed that there's a connection between the Nudists and the earthquake at Mount Kinabalu. And to me personally, we need to put a stop on this kind of trying to have no connection, but make it as if it has a connection. And especially coming from politicians, it shouldn't happen at all.
Because whatever that the politicians say, whether we like it or not, that's what goes out to the masses, and a lot of people might just believe it without even reading or finding out how valid the statement actually is. And speaking of the tremors in Ranau, according to Dr. Felix Tongkul from University Malaysia Sabah, who is a geologist, he said that tremors in Ranau can actually continue to happen consistently because the plates have moved, and this will cause energy to store in the center of the focus, because as it keeps moving, there's more and more energy being stored, and then one day it will just explode again and cause another earthquake. And it could happen at an approximate rate of every 25 years. And apparently, like we mentioned earlier, they had a few quakes before this, and the earliest one was actually back in 1966 in Sabah at that point of time.
So it's it's never too late to educate the public in a appropriate manner, as well as tourists at the same time. Because
maybe we should educate our politicians first.
Well, this kind of conversation with the tourists from politicians' point of view, it's a wrong approach, because when politicians speaks, he or she has the image of the whole country or even the state, and if the messages are delivered in a wrong manner, and that's it. I mean, that goes with the final stamp. Damn, this is the Malaysia, and this is how we represent Malaysia. So that goes to the developed nations such as US or UK, to even further to build up the relationship between these few other countries. It will affect and then even further economic growth and all those relationship will definitely be affected.
You're right on that. I mean, for example, when the US government, President Barack Obama wanted to somehow squash ISIS, because ISIS is a really huge threat right now. But the way he's doing it, he's trying to demonize ISIS, but at the same time, he said that ISIS does not represent Islam, and that's the right way to do. You can condemn what the nudists do on top of the government, on top of the mountain is wrong, especially it disrespect local custom, and they can pay the 10 buffalo for the if it's being tried under the native court. I think it's fine, but I don't think he should mention the earthquake is the result of the nudist action.
Because it goes back to the post hoc fallacy that I mentioned earlier. This is something that is scientific. You can actually study it and find out why it happened and prevent it from happening again. Or you can just blame somebody who was up there being naked, and there will be no solution from just blaming someone for this whole thing.
Right.
In fact, if I were to blame who should be responsible for the earthquake aftermath, I would blame the search and rescue team.
The meteorological department for not seeing it coming.
Yeah,
you know?
They are the biggest culprits, you know.
And also going back to what Grace said about the politician or the minister arguing with one of the climbers, I agree that it's a wrong approach, because one person is saying it's absolutely wrong, one is saying it's absolutely right, and there's no common ground there even. It's between two extremes. So I'm not surprised if the argument actually went on for days. And what it should be done is actually to have probably a middle person or a mediator to weigh out the pros and cons of both parties, both sides, and to make both of them see, okay, you're not completely wrong because this is how it is, and you're not completely right either because you are in another country and you should be more sensitive to the culture. And in that way, we can have a better understanding. Like Grace said, you don't want them to go back to UK and say, screw these Malaysians and their culture.
But
whatever.
they've already said it already on social media, and they've been stating a lot of negative negative opinions about Malaysia already, and that already put the image, certain image of Malaysia. That's when in the beginning of the interview, Malaysia is very well known for wrong reasons,
making international headlines again.
So to give our conclusion in this, do you think it is wrong for the nudists to strip naked on top of the mountain, and what should be the right way in case in the future we might have a similar problem like this?
For me, I think first of all, it's not the nudist mistake that the earthquake happened, of course, but they should have definitely been more sensitive to the local culture, to whatever superstition. You may find it ridiculous, but the fact that you are in another country, and whether it sounds ridiculous or not, that it's something that you should take into consideration. And maybe the way to prevent this is always do some research before you visit a place, especially something that's been in existence for thousands of years. It may have some supernatural belief or some story behind it.
I think this method may work very well because we cannot measure whether that person studied before traveling to other country. It's really up to that person capacity as well, and also understanding when it comes to traveling. So what I will suggest at the end of this interview is implementing fine system. Like they will have the warning, they will have the auto signboard, but if they go against it, because there will be the guards around it, so they can alarm or they can report, and that if they as in like tourists to go against it, they have to pay for it.
Sounds like Singapore to me.
But it works because people don't want to pay. They don't want to waste their money on certain things. They have to obey, or they have to just follow the rules.
But personally, I do not like going to Singapore. I'm sorry, Singaporeans, but I don't like the culture of fining. I don't like the feeling that I always need to observe, need to be politically correct, need to be whatever correctness it is. I want to be free. I want to explore, and if the person wants to be nude with nature, so be it. But I think being a tourist, just like what Gowri said, we need to have a huge knowledge on culture and history and custom. So if you really want to get nude with your friend, just do it at home, at your confine of your...
Or do your research and pick a place. There are hundreds of places around the world
There's
that
so many hills
nudity.
in Malaysia.
Exactly.
And don't put it on Facebook. Whatever that is posted on Facebook will go viral.
And you will pay for it.
Yes. That's all from me, Arlene, today.
This is Gowri.
And Grace.
Thank you.